So that's how perfect price discrimination works in the world where there's like lots of different consumers. They each want to buy one thing. They all have a different willingness to pay. But what about the case where there's like one consumer and they have their own personal demand curve and they're going to buy more of the good the cheaper it is? Okay, that describes a lot of people too. And for this kind of thing, we can use two different approaches to do perfect price discrimination. Here, perfect price discrimination means you know exactly what their willingness to pay is for each transaction, or you know like their exact individual demand curve. Okay, so we'll talk about two of these. One of them is called a two-part tariff, and the other is called a take it or leave it offer. Okay. So how's a two-part tariff work? Suppose we've got somebody whose demand curve looks like this. Okay. This is one person's demand. The lower the price, the more quantity they want to buy. Okay. So here's my marginal cost C. We know that if I'm going to sell to this person and I have to pick one price that they can get as many transactions as they want at, then the best option is going to be to set a price here based on sort of a standard monopoly argument. So this dashed line is marginal revenue. Here's Q star. That's the standard price. So P star is the per unit price. A two-part tariff says that pricing actually looks like this. The amount you pay is equal to F plus P times Q. What does that mean? That means that you pay a fixed cost F that gives you the right to enter the store, to buy the stuff. And then after that, each unit you buy is charged at price P. Another way to think of it is like it's admissions to go to a carnival, and then you have to buy tickets once you're inside to go on any of the rides. Okay? So if this is what your pricing structure looks like, what should you charge for this price, for this fixed cost F? Well, if you use the standard monopolist for P star, then the consumer surplus that the consumer gets is this area up here. Okay? That's the value that they obtain from being able to make these Q star transactions. Okay? So if you set F equal to this area, they'll get zero consumer surplus, and you'll basically but they'll still make the purchase because like they get zero if they do it, zero if they don't, so they're equally well off, and you can give them like some tiny penny worth of surplus to push them over the edge, and we just ignore that. All right, so F is going to be equal to the consumer surplus that they would normally get at price P. Okay? Now here's the trick. If this is how you're going to price, what if you lowered your price from P star, that's the monopoly price, to something lower, like this value here, P with a dash? Well, if that's the case, then the profit you would get by selling units is this area here, because for each unit you sell, you make the height P prime minus C, and then you sell more units than before, Q prime. But notice that the consumer surplus is bigger here, okay? And notice that we get this whole area, okay? Which is bigger than the area we got under the monopoly plus a fixed fee. And in fact, you can do even better than this. You should set your price equal to marginal cost and choose a gigantic fee F that covers this whole area, okay? So to maximize profit with a two-part tariff, you set P equal to marginal cost and F equal to the consumer surplus that consumers normally get if the price is P. They're not actually going to get this because you're going to extract it through this fixed cost fee. But that maximizes the total profit you get, okay? And then what does your profit look like? Where's my little cursor here? Your profit is F plus P minus your cost C times Q. But since you're setting P equal to C, this whole term is C minus C, that's 0, and 100% of your profits comes from F. And this is actually almost exactly the model that, say, Costco chooses, okay? So Costco charges an annual membership fee to be able to enter the store and access their prices. And then once you get in the store, the prices they charge are lower than you would get at other stores. They're a lot closer to marginal cost. And in fact, Costco has this rule of thumb that like all goods are charged like cost a fixed markup over like the purchase cost, and those fixed, it's like 15% or something. So they make only like a very small 15% markup over the cost that Costco gets from the retailer, and that really just covers the cost of running the shop, staffing it, and all that. So they're really almost charging price equal to marginal cost. Instead, they make almost all their profit off of those annual membership fees. And the idea is by making the price really low, that makes the membership as valuable as possible and makes people come into the store, buy more stuff than they normally might, and they get as much value from that membership as possible. And then that lets you charge a higher price for the membership. Now, as before, Costco is not the only place in town to buy the stuff Costco sells. And so they don't actually leave consumers with zero consumer surplus. It's just zero relative to consumers' outside option or their opportunity cost of going somewhere else, like Target or Walmart, whatever. Okay. And the other thing you have to, the other part of the puzzle for price discrimination is, how is Costco able to do this? How are they able to identify their consumers? How do they figure out how much people are willing to pay? How do they prevent resale, and do they have market power? So do they have market power? Well, we're sort of seeing that to some extent all firms with like a recognized brand have some market power, right? They have some trust with consumers. Second, how do they learn what customers are willing to pay? That's through like a long process of basically market research, trial and error, and so on. And notice that in the perfect two-part tariff, you would charge every individual a different price based on like a different tariff based on their individual demand curve. Costco doesn't try to do that. They just have like a sort of stylized representation of the consumer, and they charge this price. They actually have multiple levels, which we can get to later, but for now, let's ignore that. And that does mean that there are some consumers who, like, Costco's a really good deal. Like, their demand and the consumer surplus they get is higher than the $60 a year fee or whatever. Okay. But for other customers, it's like a break-even deal. And then lastly, how do they prevent resale? So what's to prevent people from going to Costco, buying stuff in bulk, and then opening their own store and just reselling it? Well, essentially, it's like costly to do that. And the stuff they sell is like, the deal is not so good that like you could make a killing doing this. And that's basically it.